The dragon in the marketplace. The marketplace of Xenui buzzed with life unlike anything Ethan had ever experienced. As Earth's newest diplomatic representative, he'd been warned to keep a low profile, but the sights and sounds were impossible to ignore. Creatures of impossible shapes and colors moved through the sprawling bazaar, their voices creating a symphony of alien languages that echoed off the metallic walls. Ethan pushed through the crowd, his human form drawing curious glances from passing traders. The air was thick with exotic spices and the metallic tang of advanced technology. This was his first major assignment off-world, and despite the Council's warnings about Earth's fragile position in the galactic community, he couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement. That's when he heard it, a roar that seemed to shake the very foundations of the marketplace. Following the sound and the sudden surge of excited chatter, Ethan found himself drawn to the far end of the bazaar. A massive crowd had gathered around what appeared to be an enormous reinforced cage, unlike anything he'd seen in his brief time among the stars. The alien spectators were animated, their energy electric as they pointed and whispered among themselves. Curiosity getting the better of him, Ethan pushed his way to the front of the crowd. What he saw took his breath away. Inside the cage lay a creature from legend, a Vorga dragon. Its scales were a dark, iridescent shade that shimmered in the dim marketplace lighting, and even folded, its wings stretched nearly the entire length of the massive enclosure. Long, jagged horns crowned its head, and its eyes glowed a fierce crimson as it snarled at the gawking crowd. This was more fearsome than any creature Ethan could have imagined. First time seeing a Vorga, human, chuckled a squat alien beside him, its four shimmering eyes fixed on Ethan's amazed expression. This one's a rare catch. They say it's ancient, older than our sun. Its rage could level a city. No one dares go near it. Why is it here? Ethan asked, unable to look away from the dragon's terrifying yet captivating form. The alien smirked, a gleeful tone entering its rough voice. Entertainment. The market owner is offering a reward. Anyone brave or foolish enough to get close to the Vorga wins enough credits to last a lifetime. Ethan's mind raced. He'd heard tales of Vorga dragons before. Legend claimed they could breathe flames hotter than stars and fly faster than any ship in the galaxy. No one believed they could be tamed, yet here was one of these ancient beasts, caged and humiliated, surrounded by creatures who treated it as nothing more than a spectacle. The dragon's eyes swept across the crowd, and for a moment, Ethan felt those crimson orbs lock onto his. In that brief connection, he saw something that chilled him, not just rage, but a deep, profound sadness. This magnificent creature wasn't just angry, it was broken. As the crowd continued to jeer and point, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was witnessing something fundamentally wrong. The Vorga dragon was more than just a monster in a cage, it was a living being, ancient and proud, reduced to an object of entertainment for the amusement of others. Little did he know that everything was about to change. The girl who saw beyond fear. A murmur rose and fell among the crowd, a mix of anticipation and disbelief. Ethan turned his head, following the collective gaze of the aliens around him. Through the sea of exotic creatures, a slight figure was stepping forward, moving with quiet determination toward the cage. As she drew closer, Ethan caught sight of her face, unmistakably human, with dark hair and eyes that held a strange, calm intensity. The murmurs grew louder as she approached the Vorga's cage, and the dragon's massive head lifted, its attention shifting from the jeering crowd to this newcomer. The beast's growls faded to a low rumble as it fixed its crimson gaze on her slim, unarmed figure. There was something different about the way it looked at her, less hostile, more curious. "Who is that?" Ethan asked, glancing around at the aliens near him. "Just a human," someone muttered dismissively, while others chuckled. "Maybe she's got a death wish." But something about her expression gave Ethan pause. Her eyes, wide with wonder yet remarkably calm, never wavered from the dragon. She looked neither fearful nor foolish, she looked determined, as if she understood something the rest of them didn't. The girl stepped closer to the cage, and the crowd's jeers began to fade into tense silence. She walked with a grace and purpose that seemed out of place among the chaotic energy of the alien marketplace. Her gaze remained steady as she approached the bars, and the Vorga dragon watched her every movement, its massive body coiled and ready, yet strangely still. The dragon's hot breath fogged the air around the cage, filling the space with the acrid scent of embers. Ethan could see its sharp, glinting fangs and the deadly claws that could tear through metal with ease. Yet the girl showed no sign of fear. She stopped just inches from the bars, her hand resting gently on one of the cage's metal beams. Her head tilted slightly as she studied the dragon, and Ethan realized with a jolt that there was no trace of terror in her eyes. Instead, there was something softer, warmth, curiosity, and what looked almost like sympathy. "Careful," one of the aliens barked, his voice edged with panic. "The Vorga can't be trusted. It'll tear you apart." But the girl didn't flinch. In fact, she seemed not to hear him at all, her focus entirely on the magnificent creature before her. Slowly, deliberately, she reached up and placed her hand gently against the cage's metal bars, her expression as calm and steady as if she were standing before a harmless pet. And then, to everyone's shock, she began to speak. "You're more than this," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the tense silence. "I know what they say about you, that you're a monster, that you're beyond reason. But I don't believe that. I believe there's more to you." The dragon's eyes narrowed, its crimson gaze unwavering. For a moment, Ethan thought it might lash out, shatter the bars, and attack. But it stayed perfectly still, its gaze intense yet strangely thoughtful, as though it were trying to understand her words. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Aliens shook their heads in disbelief and annoyance. "What is she doing?" one alien muttered, sneering. "Trying to reason with a beast? She'll be dragon food in seconds." But Ethan felt something different, a strange pull, an urge to step forward and protect this brave, foolish girl. Yet something held him back. He watched, captivated, as she drew even closer to the bars, her hands still resting against the cage. The Vorga was utterly still now, its deadly claws resting against the ground, its crimson eyes following her every movement with an intensity that was almost hypnotic. The girl leaned forward, her face just inches from the bars, and Ethan's heart began to pound as he realized what she was about to do. She was going to do something no one had ever dared, something that would change everything. The kiss that changed everything. With a gentle, deliberate motion, the girl pressed her lips softly against the bar nearest the dragon's snout. The gesture was small, simple, yet so profound that it sent a shockwave through the entire crowd. Ethan's breath caught as he watched the dragon's reaction, his heart pounding as if he were witnessing something sacred. The ancient beast froze, its fierce red eyes widening in surprise. It inhaled sharply, nostrils flaring as if trying to process what had just happened. The tension that had coiled through the dragon's massive body began to melt away. Its fierce expression softened into something unrecognizable, curiosity, bewilderment, and perhaps even reverence. The transformation was so complete, so unexpected, that the watching crowd could only stare in stunned silence. Then the silence shattered. The crowd erupted into gasps and cries of disbelief. Aliens stared with expressions mixing horror and awe, their voices rising in a cacophony of shock and confusion. Ethan himself could barely process what he'd just witnessed. This ancient beast, feared and revered throughout the galaxy, had been calmed by the gentle touch of a human girl's kiss. Slowly, the girl pulled back, her gaze still steady as she looked into the dragon's eyes. For a brief, magical moment, Ethan thought he saw a glimmer of understanding pass between them, a silent acknowledgement that transcended words and species. The dragon let out a deep, grumbling sigh, its fierce energy dissipating as it lowered its head. The tension was gone from its coiled muscles, and it seemed almost at peace for the first time since Ethan had laid eyes on it. As the crowd continued to shout and murmur in amazement, Ethan found himself moving toward her, pushing through the stunned onlookers. He reached her side, his voice filled with equal parts awe and concern. "Are you all right?" he asked, his gaze flickering between her and the dragon, still wary of the beast's unpredictable nature. She turned to him, her expression calm but intense, her eyes reflecting the quiet power of what she'd just accomplished. "I'm fine," she replied, her voice soft but firm. "I don't believe in monsters, you see." She paused, placing a hand over her heart. "Not unless we make them." Ethan felt a shiver run through him as he realized the truth of her words. He didn't know who this remarkable girl was, but he knew one thing for certain: she had just changed everything. The marketplace buzzed with chaos after what had transpired. Aliens of every kind murmured in disbelief, their voices layered with emotions ranging from awe to anger. Ethan could feel the weight of countless stares, but his attention remained focused on the girl and the now peaceful dragon. The beast was no longer snarling or snapping. Instead, it lay still, its crimson eyes fixed on her with an expression that was almost serene, a look of gratitude and recognition that seemed impossible for such a fearsome creature. Ethan finally found his voice. "Who are you?" he asked, his words barely above a whisper. She smiled, an expression both mysterious and reassuring. "My name is Lira. I'm from Earth, just a traveler really. I didn't come here to be in the spotlight." Ethan raised an eyebrow, gesturing to the stunned crowd around them. "You call that not wanting attention?" Lira shrugged, glancing back at the dragon with genuine affection. "I didn't think it would be this intense," she admitted, her gaze softening. "But I believe in connecting with others, even when they seem unapproachable. There's often more to someone than what we see on the surface." Her words held a wisdom that surprised him, and Ethan felt compelled to understand more about this extraordinary young woman who had just accomplished the impossible. Confrontation and escape. "That's a powerful philosophy," Ethan said, his skepticism fading into admiration, "but you're talking about a creature that's been known to wipe out entire planets. This isn't some stray animal." "I know," Lira replied, her gaze unwavering. "But I believe there's more to this dragon than the stories they tell. Legends are often exaggerations, and sometimes even the fiercest beings are simply misunderstood." Before Ethan could respond, a loud voice cut through the crowd like a blade. An alien official, clad in regal robes and surrounded by armed guards, stepped forward. His face was twisted with anger, and he was clearly someone with authority, and a vested interest in keeping the dragon under control. "You," the official shouted, pointing a clawed finger directly at Lira. "What have you done? This creature is dangerous, a symbol of power. You have interfered with our traditions." Lira met the official's furious gaze with remarkable calm. "I haven't done anything to disrespect your customs. I only showed it kindness. Perhaps if you did the same, you wouldn't need cages and restraints." The official's face darkened, his eyes narrowing with fury. "You dare lecture us on taming beasts? You humans know nothing of the power this creature possesses. It has caused destruction across worlds. Your foolish actions could have unleashed chaos upon us all." The crowd murmured in agreement, some glaring at Lira as if she'd committed an unforgivable crime. Ethan sensed the dangerous tension building and stepped forward, placing himself between Lira and the angry official. "Look," Ethan said, his voice firm and diplomatic, "whatever you think of humans, it's clear that this dragon isn't behaving violently. In fact, it seems calmer than any of you expected." The official sneered. "Calm? This is a temporary illusion. You have disrupted the balance. If the beast escapes, it will be on your heads." Ethan felt the weight of the threat in the official's words. They were dangerously close to turning the entire crowd against them. But before he could respond, Lira stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with compassion. "I understand your fear," she said, addressing the official directly. "But this creature is more than just a weapon or a threat. It has thoughts, feelings, instincts. If you treat it with respect, it might respond in ways you don't expect." The official opened his mouth to retort, but before he could speak, the dragon let out a deep, resonant growl that silenced the entire marketplace. The beast shifted its gaze from Lira to the official, its eyes narrowing as if in judgment. For a long, tense moment, no one dared to breathe. Then, astonishingly, the dragon lowered its head, bowing slightly toward Lira. The gesture was subtle, almost imperceptible, but the message was unmistakably clear. The crowd gasped, some stumbling backward in disbelief. Ethan's heart raced as he realized the gravity of what had just happened. This ancient, supposedly uncontrollable creature was acknowledging Lira, showing her a respect that no one else had ever received. The official's face twisted with a mix of rage and disbelief. He motioned sharply to his guards, who raised their weapons and pointed them directly at the dragon. "Enough of this," he snarled. "We'll subdue the beast and restore order. Guards, prepare to fire." Ethan's instincts kicked in immediately. He grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her back from the cage. "We have to get out of here," he whispered urgently. "If they see you as a threat, they won't hesitate to come after you too." Lira hesitated, glancing back at the dragon with obvious reluctance. She didn't want to abandon the magnificent creature, but Ethan's grip was firm and she knew they had no choice. But as the guards raised their weapons, something extraordinary happened. The dragon's eyes flashed with an intelligence that seemed almost human. It looked directly at Lira, then at the cage's lock mechanism. With a deliberate, calculated movement, it breathed a thin stream of precisely controlled flame. The lock mechanism glowed red-hot, then white-hot, before melting completely. The cage door swung open with a loud clang that echoed through the marketplace. The dragon was free. Freedom and understanding. Chaos erupted in the marketplace as the massive Vorga dragon stepped out of its cage. Aliens scattered in every direction, their screams echoing off the metallic walls. The guards who had been ready to fire moments before now found themselves face to face with their worst nightmare, an unrestrained ancient dragon. But something remarkable happened. Instead of unleashing the destruction everyone expected, the dragon simply stood there, its crimson eyes focused entirely on Lira. It made no move to attack the fleeing crowd or even the guards who still held weapons trained on it. "Impossible," the official whispered, his face pale with disbelief. "It should be rampaging, destroying everything in sight." Lira stepped forward, ignoring Ethan's attempts to hold her back. She approached the dragon slowly, her hand extended. The magnificent creature lowered its great head until it was level with hers, and she gently placed her palm against the warm scales of its snout. "You understand, don't you?" she whispered. "You know the difference between those who see you as a monster and those who see you as you truly are." The dragon's response was a low, rumbling purr that seemed to vibrate through the ground itself. It was a sound of contentment, of recognition, of gratitude that had never been heard from a Vorga dragon before. Ethan watched in amazement as the crowd began to slow their panic, some even stopping to stare at the unprecedented scene before them. Here was a creature of legend, freed from its bonds, choosing peace over violence, choosing connection over destruction. "How is this possible?" Ethan asked, his voice filled with wonder. Lira smiled, never taking her eyes off the dragon. "Because someone finally saw past the fear and the stories. This dragon isn't evil or uncontrollable, it's just been treated as such for so long that it forgot who it really was." The official stepped forward cautiously, his expression a mixture of fear and dawning realization. "The legends, they speak of Vorga dragons being noble creatures, guardians of wisdom and knowledge. But we've only known them as weapons, as threats to be contained. Maybe," Lira said gently, "it's time to remember the truth instead of perpetuating the fear." The dragon lifted its great head and looked around the marketplace with new eyes. Instead of seeing enemies and captors, it seemed to see individuals, beings capable of fear, yes, but also capable of understanding. Its posture relaxed further, and it folded its wings peacefully against its sides. One of the younger aliens in the crowd, barely more than a child by their species standards, approached hesitantly. The dragon noticed and lowered its head again, this time toward the young one. After a moment of uncertain fear, the alien child reached out and touched the dragon's snout, just as Lira had done. The dragon's purr grew deeper, more content. More aliens began to approach, their fear gradually giving way to curiosity and wonder. The marketplace, which moments before had been filled with panic, now hummed with amazed conversation and the sound of barriers being broken down. The official looked at his guards and slowly motioned for them to lower their weapons. "Stand down," he ordered quietly. I think we've been wrong about many things." Ethan turned to Lira, his respect for her growing even deeper. "What will happen now? Will it stay here?" Lira shook her head, smiling. "No, I don't think so. Look at its eyes, it's ready to go home. It's been away from its kind for too long." As if responding to her words, the dragon spread its massive wings. The span was even more impressive than Ethan had imagined, casting shadows across the entire marketplace. But instead of threatening, it was majestic, a reminder of the wonder and beauty that existed in the galaxy. The dragon looked down at Lira one final time, and in that look was a universe of gratitude. It had been shown kindness by a stranger, treated with respect when no one else would dare, and in return, it had remembered its true nature. With a powerful beat of its wings, the ancient Vorga dragon rose into the artificial sky of the space station. It circled once, as if saying goodbye, before disappearing into the stars beyond. The marketplace slowly returned to normal activity, but something fundamental had changed. The cage that had held the dragon was being dismantled, and the official was speaking in hushed tones with his advisors about reviewing their policies on captured creatures. Ethan walked alongside Lira as they made their way through the bazaar. "You know," he said, "you've probably just changed galactic policy on Vorga dragons. Maybe even on how we treat creatures we don't understand." Lira nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to see past the fear. The galaxy is full of wonders, we just have to be brave enough to look for them." As they disappeared into the crowd, the story of the human girl who kissed a dragon spread throughout the marketplace, then the station, then the galaxy. It became a legend of its own, not of monsters and fear, but of courage, compassion, and the power of understanding. And somewhere among the stars, an ancient dragon flew free, carrying with it the memory of kindness and the knowledge that even in a galaxy full of fear, there were still those who chose to see the light. The end.